Thank you very much for returning. So we might start with the next session. So the next session really has a bit of a microbiological flavour in either the content or the speakers. So the next speaker is Professor Yasmin Malik, who's going to speak on challenges in sustaining quality standards. I'm certain that you all know Professor Malik, but she's the visiting senior clinical consultant in the Department of Medical Microbiology at the University of Malaya Medical Centre. So thank you very much, Professor.
Tadi tinggi, saya rendah. Yang ni macam mana nak makan? You on kan? Hah? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First, I need to admit that despite me truly wanting to give tons of examples in relation to microbiology, being a clinical microbiologist, and even worse, a clinical virology some more, kind of a sub-specialty, I have basically made this presentation such that it can apply to all pathology. So, but please bear with me, pardon me if by chance I happen to mention a couple of microbiology-related examples. Now, when I was asked to talk about this, challenges in sustaining quality standards, sounds like a big deal, but in truth, it's something that every single one of us are experiencing practically every day, ever since the how many times removed Tan Sri Abu Bakar when he was DG, all right, way back in the late 1990s, decided to basically, with WHO's support, basically set up quality assurance in the healthcare services. So we've been at it for more than 20 years. And have we kind of succeeded? Somewhat, kind of. And you'll see that when I give examples about some of the things that has been done to help address these challenges, but there are some that are even more of a problem, especially with the availability of automation. One would think that with automation, then man wouldn't be, man was thought to be the cause of issues with regards to quality standards. Well, men still come into play. All right, we still come to play when it comes to maintaining quality standards, even if we are fully automated. I'll begin with talking about finding a balance, all right? We struggle. When I talk about finding a balance, basically what I meant is that what is it that we need, all right, to improve patient care, safety, versus the nightmarish word, what to do to maintain accreditation, all right? So kind of a two-pronged challenge for us. The reason why we are into healthcare service patient care is because we want to basically provide service. But at the same time, there's this issue about ensuring that the service that we provide to these patients is such that we won't end up, well, because we're in the pathology services, indirectly causing harm, and worst case scenario, causing death, right? At the end of the day, we're still serving man, we're still serving patient. At the same time, since the late 1990s, this word accreditation came into play. In other words, when it came into play, this is across the board for all of us. The moment we get this date, that's when we start worrying. What to do, where to go, how to do it, what is it involved. In other words, we focus on the visit. The moment's over, that's it, relax, do something else. All right? Plan the next annual dinner, whatever it is, until we get a date for the next visit. All right? Is it something that's new? No. Malaysia boleh, we can do it. But then after that, maintaining, sustaining, nanti dulu, the famous words. All right? In other words, by the time we actually start looking and preparing for the next visit, that's when we realize things have drifted. What we plan to do, what we plan to implement, you have yet to begin, or we did begin, but yet to monitor. So, now that when I went through quite a lot of application in relation to challenges, I didn't realize there are a lot, all right, a lot in relation to that. So, what I'm giving you is not so much in terms of what the challenges when you want to start. What are the challenges in between visits, in between accreditation visits? In other words, when there are changes, any kind of changes. So, what are the challenges? Right on the outside, it's to do with resources. It's to do with budget. It's always limited. There's always some constraints. So in other words, as far as management and administration is concerned, the famous words, tak cukup duit. All right? Not just in terms of resources, but also personnel. There's always not enough people, or people have left, or people have been transferred out. Those of us in the government service, those in the private sector, suddenly you have a mass exodus of technical staff, what to do, kind of thing like that. So, yeah. So you get this kind of restraints, okay? So, with lacking these restraints, obviously, some of the things that can be challenged and unfortunately can result in getting NCs, while you may have training available for staff, often they're not. I personally find that in trying to be able to do what needs to be done, the training is incomplete. In other words, they get trained, but they don't get assessed, all right? Or new staff coming in between training, before they're even deemed okay, they have to be called down, all right, to do the diagnostic work, all right? Reason being is that not enough people, mass exodus, number of people have left. So it's kind of a catch-22. Obviously, the one that's most important is patient care, diagnostics, all right? So, but it has resulted in NCs, all right, in relation to whether the training is incomplete, in the sense that now they have got a nice, lovely logbook, which is not filled, or not addressed accordingly, or they're not assessed. And of course, once you have all this equipment and all the techniques and all that, it's not a permanent thing, all right? Something may go wrong to the equipment, or there's the latest technology, or there's a request from some Dato or Tan Sri, there's this new test that's available. In other words, funds to try to manage these changes in relation to equipment, whether it's been new, or to replace, or to repair, or because our requester have indicated that this is something that's available now, can we consider it, all right? Well, I'm being kind and say the word consider. Usually we get an arahan, all right? And of course, ultimately, the failure to invest in continuous improvement initiatives. All right? It's nice to say this, what we need to do about it, but it's another in trying to implement it. But I need to say this. In other words, to maximize their impact, the organization needs to carefully allocate, if they can, resources, but try to, all right, prioritize quality management efforts. Now, the one and continuous challenge is to do with workforce. Because at the end of the day, how automated we are is to do with our staff, is to do with workforce. All right? And what's the worst case scenario, of course, would be reduction of workforce, which basically means that they get transferred, a husband got transferred, so must follow the husband, or pregnant, maternity leave, more than a month off. So these are things. In other words, you need to have enough staff, but sometimes the number of staff may not be enough for sudden reduction in workforce. All right? But if it involves somebody leaving, that means you're talking about new, untrained staff. All right? But the one thing that, as technical assessors, we cannot accept as a reason to say that, no time, still training and all that. New and untrained staff cannot be a reason to compromise patient safety. End of the day, something must be done, all right, to make sure that it does not happen. Not that if it happens, you do something about it. It's more to do with, this is a prevention or a prevention measure, all right? And once you have them, all right, basically, I'd say, I've seen in a lot of induction programs, but can I say we need more? Yes. Can we say we need more specific training? Yes. What's even more important, don't send them away on a workshop. Not I'm telling you now that you shouldn't come here, but the point is, when it comes to technical training and all that, make it on the job. In other words, training on site, where they are needed, all right? So on-the-job training is important, but at the same time, while we may assess them on site, while we train them on site, we need to assess them as well, all right? So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that make that process more system-dependent than person-dependent. The last thing many of us need to hear is that, we cannot do it because that person is on maternity leave. Or we cannot do that, but the person left suddenly yesterday. Or worst case scenario, an accident happened day before yesterday, over the weekend. So first thing Monday, we cannot do it. All right. In other words, one form of preventive measure is the system itself. In other words, contingency plan is not just related to no electricity, a Wi-Fi off, is to do with the process itself, all right? Must still go on, even though that person who's supposed to do it is not there, all right? Easier said than done, all right? But I have to mention it. The other thing is, once you have them, can we leave them alone? We have trained them, assessed them. No, all right? It's a continuous thing. In other words, the lack of staff training and development needs to continue, because at the end of the day, we're talking about additional knowledge, additional skills. Without that, that's when you get errors, inefficiency, and even sadder still, low quality results. I didn't say wrong results, I say low quality results. In other words, they didn't know the knowledge, so they didn't know how to validate the results. To what degree? Is it okay to just say positive, negative? Or must there be some kind of quantification or units that is even just as relevant? Right? And that requires some form of additional training. All right? In other words, what I'm trying to say is that access to continuous training and development enables our staff to grow, all right? Because ultimately, when you do that, actually not only maintain, but actually improve the quality of their work, all right? So, okay, new staff, train well, assess them, all right? Give them more training, a lot of CME, CPDs and all that. Yeah, that's to do with your own technical thing. But here we're talking about quality standards. In other words, resistance to change. It's bad enough they have to learn to do things. Now tell them you got to do it a different way. All right? So for them to understand that this is very important, so they are resistant to that. Because especially for us in the government sector, the famous word, arahan kerja, all right? But never that long explanation as to why it's necessary. Why do we do that? Because honestly, we have to admit, not all personnel will readily accept changes to help improve quality management. However, all right, because it involves extra hours over the weekend. School holidays, well, during school holidays, we work as well. But now, they cannot do it. They cannot go on holiday with the kids because of these additional things. I mean, the number of times when I've seen, even when I was in UKM, about them not being able to go on holiday with their kids because of this last-minute thing over the weekend. Like tambah-tambah lah, add-on kind of thing. A lot of last-minute stuff. It involves extra hours. So in other words, when the benefits of these extra hours that you make them do, all right, when the benefits cannot be seen, it makes it very, very difficult for us to motivate them, right, to be able to perform to their best abilities. All right? There are long hours, weekends gone, cannot go on holiday with the kids, and now you expect them to do the very best. They're not in the mood for it. All right? My mate who's been with me for over 25 years, I've learned to accept the fact that when I ask her to do something, she says, I'm not in the mood. I accept that. All right? Because she doesn't see the benefit. Not just for her, for both of us. So, essential. All right? You need to know what are the benefits. So, some of the essential steps, all right, in general, all right, to overcome this. Of course, we're talking about participation, training, and support. All right? Even more important, all right, we forget. Sometimes when we give them, we never tell them why. It helps a lot when we explain to them what is the benefit of this. All right? Transparent presentation of quality management is just as important. Okay? So, you train them, you train them, CPD, CME, and kind of stuff and all that. You say, okay, we've got very motivated, but we forget. We are humans. We make mistakes, even at the best of times. So even the most vigorous training and all the procedures, mistakes can happen. I'm giving you a couple of examples which ironically, well, you heard about EQA. Well, one of the issues that sometimes outliers occur is when you get transcription error. Many times I've gone to the labs. They get outliers. Why? Supposed to be positive, they salah tekan, jadi negative. All right? So it's to do with transcription error. All right? While you're doing EQA, it's fine, but you're dealing with patient and patient's results. That has a huge impact. The other thing as well is that we need to understand that whatever technique, whatever procedures that we're doing is forever changing. All right? There's always some additional changes need to be made. But when we miss it, and when it's vital, that can have an impact. All right? So, in other words, you're going to get inconsistencies in the final result. So, that's why I need to emphasize the importance of, and that is mentioned time and time again, all right? And that's the first thing I always look out for whenever I do a critical visit, is making sure that any manual transcriptions are double-checked, all right? Not double-checked by the same person, all right? Which has happened, all right, I must say. And it tends to happen when, after hours lah, you know. Nak cari orang pun susah, all right? Which is acceptable. You can't only ask the person to come all the way here just to double check your results, all right? When the person's on call. But during office hours, it's mandatory. And of course, the other one that, again, I check time and again, make sure, because it is vital, it is critical, is to make sure that whatever documented procedures they come up with needs to be reviewed, all right? And if need be, updated. Now, I use the word review, that doesn't mean that if there are no changes, tak payahlah. No. You must have documented evidence to say that, okay, I reviewed, no changes. Then you write then, reviewed such a day, no changes noted. To indicate that you actually made a point of reviewing it every year in according to your quality manual. All right. Now, the one thing I love is the fact that, some of them says, we review twice a year, 2 years once. All right? But if it's vital, necessary, then once a year. If it's not so vital, ignore it, maybe in 3 years' time. I don't like that. All right? Because anything can happen. Look, COVID happened. Kalang kabut like crazy. All right? So when you have not updated your documents in time, that's when you have this grabbing people from a different department, all right, over time, just to catch up. And trying to catch up, especially in relation to maintaining, not improving, implementing, maintaining your quality standards is very challenging. All right. Now, for us in microbiology, a lot of our results, it's more quality related, not quantitative. Now, biochem, practically everything under the sun is quantitative, which makes it a bit easier. Easier in what sense? Easier in measuring. Trying to measure quality metrics is very challenging. So what do you mean by quality metrics? Basically, when you want to try to quantify what is initially subjective, and worst case, when it relates to person-to-person variation. Somebody sees it as positive, somebody sees it as negative. Some sees it not so positive, more like negative. How in heavens are you going to quantify that? All right? So, and some of the additional external factors, all right, would be when there's changes in the regulatory rules, or when the requester, him or herself, I know, but it's not so positive. Not so positive. How positive do you want to be? All right? And the worst case scenario is that I want to confirm negativity. It's negative. How negative do you want it to be? No, sometimes some requesters drive me nuts. All right? It's not long ago. I'm still experiencing it. To prove negativity, to confirm negativity. I already told you it's negative. But yeah, positive, negative, how you measure it, how you quantify it can be a major challenge. All right? So the other one, of course, is to do with branding. All right? It's to do with customer satisfaction. When customer or patient, well, here customer is not so much patient. Customer is more to do with our requesters. All right? When they say, no, I don't like the way this is done. All right? Or there's this new, especially for us in microbiology, this new antibiotic that's out there, or this company supposed to be slightly better. What do you mean by slightly better? In what context? These are intangible. So, to basically help us measure these quality metrics, help us, all right? Not really definitely measure it, but to enable us to say whether it's getting better, it's improving, would basically means constant review. The only way, in other words, you're looking at trend, because the only way you can do that, if review and look at trend, that's when you're able to improve the measurement system. All right? And even more important, it's one thing saying that we need to do that, but it's another actually doing that. What do you mean by that? Getting the clinicians involved. In other words, have them come in to say, okay, what is it that you want? All right? In other words, try as far as possible, bring in, all right, those stakeholders to try and define, and what do you mean by, confirming negativity? Why do you want to confirm negativity? So maybe if they explain to us what it means, then we can do something to help them. So in that sense, in other words, it's no use saying, that datuk susah betul lah. No, speak to that person, find out, and if preferably in that unit department, find out what is required. So get them involved. In other words, it's a win-win situation. The other thing is to do with communication. Just give you one example. And the other one is coordination. Communication, coordination can be not wrong, but not enough. So when you get poor communication, what is the impact, what is the outcome? That's when you get misunderstanding, you get confusion, worst case scenario, delays, all right? And of course, even worse still, mistakes. What about poor coordination, all right? And I don't mean you go left, I go right, must follow the same way. Not so much. Worse is when, all right, time get wasted, resources basically get wasted, and effort get wasted. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes, and it's been known to happen, certain processes, certain steps that needs to be done when you have multiple teams involved. And those teams don't talk to each other. All right? In other words, doing the same thing, but not sharing the information with one another. And I don't mean within the department. I mean in the country. One hospital to another hospital. Private sector, public sector. All right? I've seen it happening, whereby some things that private sector are doing, are doing the same thing what the public sector is doing, and some of them are doing well, the other no, we are competitors, all right? To me, at the end of the day, when it comes to patient care, no competitors. Ultimately, the day is for patient care, for patient safety. So it's something that you find out that both sides are doing, and the only way we find out that both sides are doing is when both sides get invited to this kind of events. Both the private sector and the public sector get invited to this. That's when you can share knowledge, you can share experiences, you can share what is it that you're doing that maybe you can help each other out. All right? As opposed to, private sector have got their own little thing, the public sector have got their own little thing, and it turned out they're actually doing the same thing. All right? When in truth, they could have helped each other. That's what I mean in terms of poor coordination. So what is it that we need to do? Well, obviously, like I mentioned, establish and try to adhere to transparent channels of communication protocols. In other words, all right, although it sounds rather blunt, all right, make sure that everyone involved knows their place. In other words, they cannot say, my way is correct. No, your way not so good. No, all right. We basically, we can agree to disagree, but not fight with each other, all right. So these are to do with the processes. There's one group of people we need to also try to convince, to educate, which can be also challenging, are the suppliers. All right? Because sometimes I remember many years ago, when I talk about MOU, all right? I had suppliers saying, what does MOU mean? So, a bit difficult, right? No, we don't have that. Didn't even bother to find out what MOU means, much less saying, no, we don't have that. In other words, you have vendor suppliers not willing or unable to adapt and adapt to whatever's new, and if it's implemented, to maintain that. In other words, it leaves on us, all right? We cannot expect, they are the suppliers, they should know better, they should attend these workshops and all that. It helps because they are our vendors. In other words, we have contracts with them. It, again, it's to do with coordination, it's to do with cooperation, it's to do with communication. In other words, if need be, tell them what the merits of maintaining this standard. Create a win-win strategy, all right? Because that's the only way we can enhance quality, all right? But even then also, Even if the vendors or the suppliers say, okay, we will do this, but still, all right, things can happen. In other words, and it's in our ISO as well, the need to review our suppliers and our vendors, all right, and do it regularly. Because the one thing we need to make sure is that it is consistent, because the last thing we need is non-compliance. And have I raised that? Unfortunately, yes, all right. And it's one thing reviewing their performance, but the other challenge, all right, is reviewing their supplies, because there may be variability in the materials that they provide us, that they sell to us. Because even with the best of suppliers, they are dependent on manufacturers from overseas and all that. It's not them who produce it. Even if they produce it also, it behoves on them to basically do what's necessary, because there will be differences in the quality of the materials, batch to batch, lot to lot. And you'll be hearing about the lot to lot issue later, all right? Because obviously this will affect the final product's quality. Thereby, you get results, but you're unable to maintain consistency. Sorry, this is the one where I'm talking about the microbiology bit, all right, as an example. Because, again, it's something that we looked at, we addressed time and time again, because it is one of the ISO requirements. And that is, when we receive test kits from the same vendor, we always make sure, all right, that if it's lot to lot, we know it can affect the final results, we do acceptance testing. But obviously, I mean, have I given NC? Yes. Because they say, oh, no, we done only for that lot. But the same number, so it's a different lot. Yeah, but that came later on. Where did it come? How long it take? Every time you receive, you do acceptance testing. It's a simple method, something, make it part of the culture, because you never know. Something may have been stored well at the beginning, but later something happened, maybe there was a flood or whatever it is, and they move these reagents or test kits to another place. So that can affect its viability. So whatever that comes to you, do not, what I'm saying is that when you see that lot number, look, they don't make 100, they may make 100 million. All right? So just because you see that lot number, you say, cukup lah, tak payah dah, dah buat dah. Depends on how you got it, where it was stored. All that have implications. So when it comes to us, when we store it in the way we have been told how to store it, we're not so sure whether the company that sold us that stored those stuff in the same way that it was meant to be stored. No, there could be certain problems, certain issues. All right? Now, this is to do with time. All right? Oh, my time is out. All right. Basically, all right, advances in technology, new research findings, changes in requirement updates. Remember, ISO 15189, 2022 now. All right? So, time, all right? Maintaining the standards over that time with all these changes can be a major challenge. But whatever it is, remember, staff. Staff turnover also has an impact. Okay? So in other words, we need to review, adjust the standards on a regular basis. How do we do this? Well, ongoing training programs. Something that we need to continue and do it on a regular basis. I know there are some labs do it twice a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year. So, wow, best. Yeah, they may do quality audits, but it's for the same thing. Yang simple, they can do 4 times a year. If you do 4 times a year, it's 4 different things. Not the same thing 4 times a year. It doesn't help. Okay? And even more important, feedback. I remember for many, many years, we never bothered getting feedback from our patients or customer stakeholders. Now, again, ISO has driven us to make sure that we need to get feedback, but we don't just record it and file it, all right? In other words, we need to address it, all right? That's how we find ways to improve. However, that's why I work overtime. This takes a long time, and it's very costly. All right. Now, I need to stop here, but pardon me if I go on to the very, very last slide. Actually, I've got another 10 more slides, but know me, all right? Those who know me well enough, I tend to go on and on and on, even talking about my maid and stuff like that. But whatever it is, when our late DG, I can't say late, he's still alive. When Tan Sri Abaka was DG, all right, his premise was, when I read about, when he gave his report to WHO, when it comes to quality assurance, it's something that needs patience, right? Needs time, all right? And even more important, incentives for our staff, all right? Now, the one thing I love about our current DG, all right, what he did was, every time when he sends an appointment letter to me, I'm sure he does it for everyone, I'm not that special. When he sends an appointment letter to me to chair this, to be this committee, it's followed up with a certificate saying that I've been appointed at such and such for such and such a time. All right? That's great. In other words, especially in the year when you've got on your assessment and all that, nak cari surat susah. But if they're all in certificate, senang. Our file there. Lovely colored certificates. And that's what the current DG is doing. So in other words, what I'm saying is that, all right, even if it's for him, it's an annual thing. But even if it's for 1 day, 1 hour, any staff, including you guys, would smile from ear to ear when you get this certificate saying that in appreciation for, or thank you for, you're hereby appointed to be involved in this internal quality audit from this date to this date, 3 days only. But your name is there, and the year is there, and you're involved. And that's when people like that don't mind being involved in internal quality audit every year. Because if it's 3 years, 3 certificate, all right? Makes a lot of difference, okay? In other words, anytime you appoint anyone for anything, even if it's for 1 day, have that cert. Because I tell you, I promise you, it'll make a ton of difference in helping you to maintain your quality standards. I thank you.
Thank you, Professor Malik.